One chamber of the U.S. Congress has voted to overturn a presidential emergency declaration. I'm Carl Azus with your down-the-middle explanation of what that means. When he was on the campaign trail in 2016, future U.S. President Donald Trump promised to build a wall along America's southern border with Mexico. He recently asked Congress for $5.7 billion to pay for it. Congress did not approve that. It set aside a little less than $1.4 billion for border security. So earlier this month, the president declared a national emergency. That would allow him to access the money to build a wall or barrier without the approval of Congress, even though Congress has the constitutional control over how the government spends public money. Presidents have been allowed to declare national emergencies under a law that was passed in 1976, and they've done that dozens of times. But under that law, Congress also has the authority to stop the emergency declaration, and while it hasn't done that before, one chamber of it, the House of Representatives, voted yesterday to overturn President Trump's emergency declaration. So what happens next? Well, it's now up to the Senate to vote in the weeks ahead, and we don't know how that'll turn out. The House is controlled by Democrats, who mostly disapprove of the wall. In the Senate, Republicans, who mostly support the wall, have a small majority. But some may still vote against the Republican president's emergency declaration because they're concerned that a future Democratic president could use the same power to do something they don't want. Even if the Senate joins the House in overturning the emergency declaration, President Trump would veto that, and it would probably stand. But there are other challenges. 16 states have filed a lawsuit to block the declaration from going through. President Trump said he expected that and that the Supreme Court would ultimately side with his administration. How and when all this plays out is in the hands of Congress and the courts. Another priority for President Trump is getting the communist nation of North Korea to completely give up its nuclear program. He's in the Southeast Asian country of Vietnam right now for a second historic summit with North Korea's leader. Kim Jong-un is hoping that the U.S. will end its sanctions, its economic penalties on his country. The question of which nation should make the first move has been a sticking point since the two leaders' first summit last summer. Ahead of their second meeting, the White House said just the fact that these two rival leaders were getting together was a victory, and that a third summit down the road might be necessary for them to reach a final agreement. But several international analysts are saying that this summit is when action needs to be taken.
U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are meeting for a second time. First, it was Singapore. Now, Hanoi, Vietnam. Whatever you want to call it, Trump-Kim Round 2, Trump-Kim the sequel, Trump-Kim 2.0, it's surreal. These guys went from trading threats.
They will be met with fire and fury.
To exchanging letters.
And then we fell in love. Okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters.
But let's be real. Analysts say it'll take much more than letters for the Hanoi summit to deliver what Singapore did not. Actual progress on denuclearization. The first summit was heavy on symbolism, light on specifics. Trump and Kim signed a vaguely worded agreement. It allowed them to walk away with very different ideas of what should happen next. Now, you can argue both sides have taken steps to reduce tensions. Before the summit, Kim suspended missile launches and nuclear tests. The North Koreans even took us to their nuclear test site so we could watch them blow parts of it up. After the summit, North Korea handed over a few dozen sets of Korean War remains. Trump suspended joint military exercises with South Korea. He sent his top diplomat, Mike Pompeo, to Pyongyang 4 times.
We had productive, good faith negotiations.
But talks fell apart. The U.S. wanted North Korea to be transparent about its nuclear program and to start taking irreversible steps to get rid of nuclear weapons.
Complete denuclearization.
Did that happen? No. North Korea wanted the U.S. to ease up on sanctions pressure, work on building trust, normalizing relations. Did that happen? No. That's what makes this second summit in Hanoi so important. Analysts say both sides need to come to the table with realistic expectations, a willingness to compromise, and they need to walk away with a specific plan. Singapore delivered plenty of made-for-TV moments. Hanoi needs to deliver results.
10-second trivia. Which of these airports sees more passengers than any other? Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta, Beijing Capital, London Heathrow, or Chicago O'Hare? With more than 100 million passengers annually, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International is considered the world's busiest airport. And it's near that airport that a major U.S. airline has just opened a massive facility where jet engines are tested. Let's say a plane with two engines is in the air and one of them gives out. The plane can still stay aloft, but the thrust in the working engine needs to be increased quickly to produce an extraordinary amount of power. And facilities like this one are built to make sure the engines, with their tens of thousands of parts, can handle that pressure long before they're mounted on a plane and put in the air.
The future of testing some of the most powerful jet engines in the world is right here at Delta's brand new facility in Atlanta.
This is exciting because this is the largest test cell in the world, and we're going to be able to run engines 30, 40, 50 years into the future because of the way we built this facility.
The engines that keep travelers up in the air during tens of thousands of flights a day have to be checked regularly to make sure they're safe to fly. That's what this place is for.
Airline engines are getting bigger and bigger because we're building bigger and bigger, more efficient wide-body aircraft.
This test cell can handle up to 150,000 pounds of thrust. And when you think of thrust, just think of as you stand on a scale, instead of standing on the scale, you would hold the scale horizontally and push it in space. That's thrust.
Everything in here is gigantic, designed to keep the engine's massive power inside the cell and away from bystanders. The walls are made of concrete 3 feet thick, and the doors weigh more than 300,000 pounds. A huge lift is built into the floor so workers can reach the engines, which can weigh more than 8 tons.
A typical engine, when it goes through the rebuild process, is in a shop anywhere from 60 to 90 days. The engines are completely disassembled, all the piece parts are inspected, everything's reassembled, and then it has to come to this facility to be tested. The testing allows us to make sure that oil temperatures, oil pressures, rotor speeds, exhaust gas temperatures, thrust, everything meets the parameters that we know that when we put it out on the aircraft, that it's going to last as long as it's supposed to.
We expect this facility to support not only Delta Airlines, but 150 other customers we have. And that should equate to about 1,000, 1,200 engines in the next 3 to 5 years. The real story about this facility is not that it's the largest test cell in the world, but it's what it represents. It's a legacy our senior technicians are going to leave behind.
It's all aimed at making Delta more competitive as more and more airliners and passengers take to the skies.
Winning 10 out of 10 today, what could be the world's most extreme model plane. A Chinese farmer always dreamed of owning a passenger jet, but they're expensive, so he built his own. This is a model of an Airbus A320. It is life-sized. It reportedly took more than 60 tons of steel to build, and its materials cost the farmer almost $400,000. Along with a team of a few other farmers turned mechanics, they put this together in a little over 2 years. It's a dream of a model and a model of a dream. Maybe it'll never catch an in-flight airstream, but it's taken off an interest if not taken off the ground. It's a soaring success even though it's earthbound. It's a 1-to-1 scale reproduction fantasy. Was it worth it? Well, that's plain to see. I'm Carl Jesus. CNN10 is back tomorrow.